Welcome back to NewsX. I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching Focal Length, where we get you a briefing on topics from across the world. In this conversation, we will discuss whether Islamist extremism is becoming a more significant threat in the West and how could nations respond to this growing concern. We will also examine the ongoing challenges in Gaza, exploring the effectiveness of Israel's military strategy and the chances for a hostage resolution. Turning to Syria, is there potential for a more moderate leadership under HTS, and what is the wider impact of Assad's ouster on regional stability? Also, what is the possibility of peace between Ukraine and Russia under the current leadership? Let's find out. Joining us is Adrian Calamel, an esteemed expert in terrorism and Middle Eastern affairs. He is a fellow at the Arabian Peninsula Institute and the author of an upcoming book on Hezbollah. Thank you, Adrian Calamel. My first question to you is the New Orleans terror attack indicative of the rise of Islamist terrorism in the West?
That's a great question. And yes, I do see this as being an early indicator of what's to come. We have to look at, there are two large terror plots. There's an Al-Qaeda plot, which is called the Homeland plot, and there's also something tied to the Islamic Republic of Iran called the Soleimani plot, which is more assassinations of former President Trump or incoming President Trump. So we have not experienced a terror attack in a large-scale terror attack in the United States since 9/11. And the concern is that there's been planning for decades now, and something is on its way.
Trump had blamed the attack on immigration. Do you think tightening Muslim immigration laws could help stop terror attacks?
People will point to immigration, obviously. Now, this person was not an immigrant, so we can rule that out. But we have to understand that over the last 4 years, I would say just in the last year since the October 7th 2023 attack, there are over 200 individuals on the terrorism watch list that were stopped at the southern border. So the southern border is absolutely a concern. It's been used by Hezbollah for years. They closely coordinate with the cartel Las Zetas, which is a Tijuana cartel. And there's been a Tijuana pipeline that has moved not just people, but materials, weaponry, and that's the type of thing that has terror analysts concerned.
In the wake of the New Orleans terror attack, do you think the US is equipped to tackle rising cases of Islamist radicalization in the country?
I really don't think we are, because people, if you look at the streets, you look at the protests that have been taking place throughout the country, people waving ISIS flags, waving Hezbollah flags. There is obviously some type of gravitational pull towards these radical Islamist ideas or ideologies. Now, whether these people are useful idiots or not, that's another question for another day. But how hard would it be for several individuals to peel off from these large groups that are marching through New York City, marching through Chicago, to peel away and commit, let's say, Mumbai-style attacks that paralyze the city? So, are we well equipped? No. The FBI director, Christopher Wray, who has been in charge, he's been for over a year. Every time he testifies, he looks increasingly nervous. So I think the rest of the country should be nervous, because I don't think we're well equipped.
How do you think Trump will be able to negotiate a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia?
That's difficult. So my hope is that Trump would use one thing, that the United States has enormous economic leverage, and use economic leverage along with any type of military leverage to force Russia into the worst possible deal for Putin. There needs to be some price extracted from Russia, from Putin, to not just end this war, but to rebuild Ukraine. Now, we don't know what the objectives are. We've never had clear objectives. What are the Ukrainian objectives? What land do they wish to regain control of? So I know Trump, he says he can end this on day one. I think that's a pipe dream. It's going to take a lot more than that. This has been dragging on for 3 years, but it comes with clear objectives. What are the objectives and how to force Putin into the best possible deal for the Ukrainians and for the world?
Several attempts at reaching a hostage exchange deal between Israel and Hamas have been unsuccessful. Do you think there is ever a possibility of the return of hostages?
No, I really don't, because ultimately Hamas knew that the hostages, once they were decimated, is even before they experienced heavy losses, that was their leverage. That was the most leverage that they had, was holding the hostages. That's what's keeping the Israeli troops out from clearing out Hamas completely. And we also have to look at the fact that Hamas may not be the final decision maker in who holds in or when the hostages are going to be released. I think that that decision comes from Tehran, from the Islamic Republic.
Do you think it is necessary for Israel to strike Gaza on a daily basis, killing thousands, for it to build pressure on Hamas to return the hostages? And is this working?
I don't think it's so much as hitting Hamas to release the hostages. It's trying to eliminate Hamas. And what's been going on is they have, over a year of war, they have moved from area to area, using pauses, humanitarian aid, ceasefires or proposed ceasefires, and then hidden into civilian populations. Israel, Hamas still has the ability, and they are launching rockets at Israel. So Israel, from the beginning of the war, said this cannot stand. There's been basically two demands here. One, the hostages were number one, but two, that Hamas can never, ever coordinate and pull off this type of attack again. So until Hamas lays down its weapons, of which I don't see it happening, I don't expect Israel to either.
Can there really be a moderate Jelani-led HTS regime that would ensure democracy in Syria?
Yeah, no, I see. I am the cynic on this, and I know a lot of people will disagree with me on this, but I don't see him as being anywhere near being a moderate. He's Al Qaeda. He's going to put a charm offensive on the West, just as the Taliban. We talk about Taliban 2.0 putting on this charm offensive, where they receive billions of dollars from the United States in aid that goes directly into their hands. I think we're seeing the same thing with Jelani. It's, we look at it, the West is saying, well, he publicly disavowed himself from Al Qaeda. They changed the name from Al Nusra Front to HTS. He's shaved his beard. He's put on a clean suit. But it's not like changing political parties. This is his ideology. This is what he believes in. This is what he's growing in. So this is a 3-year, 4-year plan to try and fool the West, fool the world, and hopefully that he can get the support that he needs to create an Islamic emirate in Syria, just like we have an Islamic emirate in Afghanistan, which are the building blocks to a global caliphate.
Do you think the ousting of the Assad government has set the stage for the revival of ISIS in the region?
ISIS, when we look at their history, they were, they had the physical caliphate dissolved in Raqqa and Mosul, but ISIS has been around, either out there operating or in prisons, which were released during this raid. I have seen video pictures of individuals that are quote unquote the rebels fighting in Syria that have ISIS flags on their vests. So everybody wants to make this distinction between ISIS and Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda is the top player. They are the main, the top dog. But they also have, one of the benefits, I would say a benefit, I don't like to call it that, but one of the benefits of ISIS coming about, this public break that happened in 2013 between Al Qaeda, it has given Al Qaeda and the Taliban with ISIS a layer of plausible deniability. They have worked with them. I know this may not be a popular opinion, but they're really two sides of the same coin. A lot of these individuals that were liberators were actually ISIS fighters as well as Al Qaeda fighters that are working side by side. Now, if you get them into a different battlefield, let's say in Togo or somewhere in Africa, they turn the guns on each other. But right now, it seems to be that ISIS, Al Qaeda, they're operating together in Syria.
Thank you, Adrian Calamel, for speaking to us on Focal Length. With that, it's a wrap on this episode. For more international news updates, stay tuned on NewsX.